Father God, thank you so much for being with us through toil and trouble and in hard times and in good times. And right now we ask a special blessing of your Spirit as Today, we're going to talk about Ruth. Now, if you didn't know, the Pathfinders in this group have been memorizing a lot of the book of Ruth for the Pathfinder Bible experience. And so this story is going to be very familiar, well, probably to all of us. But with that process, I hope that we will take just a moment to look at things in a little different way. To say, what is it that makes Ruth's story so special? And how can we apply it to our lives today? But perhaps, for you, what makes a bad day? You know, what is it that really causes you to say, this was a hard day? Maybe it's the piles of laundry or a bad grade or a car crash, or maybe it's something a little more serious, like being bullied at school or relationship struggles. Maybe, but you know, sometimes it's something little, just like that blemish that pushes you over the top. You're like, man, I was doing okay, and this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Have you ever had a bad day? Well, today we've got several people that had not just bad days, but extended periods of trouble. Our story begins in Ruth with Elimelech and Naomi. And they were a wonderful husband and wife who believed in God and loved him and were his people in his chosen land. And you'd think that means that their story would be very happy. But we open up Ruth 1:1. Now it came about in those days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land. Well, that's not a happy way to start a story. And there was a famine in the land. And when that situation, that trouble, whatever that is, comes, you have a choice. You get to say, what am I going to do with famine? What am I going to do when things are messy? Well, people handle messy very differently. You see, this group, well, what is your famine? What does it look like when there's a messy situation? Maybe for you, it's canceled plans or broken relationships. Maybe it's the fact that everything costs thousands of millions of times more than it did, 2 years ago. Maybe it's the fact that there's been trouble getting together with all this COVID exposure. I mean, actually, this event had to be rescheduled because the first time, so many people had COVID that it wasn't safe for us to get together. There's a lot of experiences that we look at and say, man, this is famine. This is hunger in my life. This is hardship. What am I going to do? Our human nature handles trouble in some very predictable ways. When there's trouble, some of you will say, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work my way out of this. I'm going to plow more ground. I'm going to plant. I don't care if I have to walk 1,000 miles to fix this. I'm going to water these dry things with my bare hands. I am going to work my way out of this. And then there's the deflection model, where you say, oh, well, maybe if it's somebody else's fault. It's not my problem. Somebody else, you. Or there's the idea of saying you're going to just disengage. And maybe it's that binging of that show or being so engaged in something else that you're like, man, I can't deal with this. And so there's that hiding. And then there's the urge to run, to say, man, I can't handle this here, so let me just see if maybe a different situation is going to get better. There's a children's book called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And in this book, he doesn't actually have very big struggles. I mean, he does get gum in his hair, and he doesn't get to sit by the window on the way to school, and he does have to go to the dentist, but all of his struggles are pretty normal. But every time anything happens, he's like, I'm going to move to Australia. He's like, I am going to move to Australia because obviously things are going to be better there. And there's that desire to say, man, I'm looking for something better. The story ends by his mom saying, you know what? Sometimes people have terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days, even in Australia. And it's that desire to say, we can run. What does it mean to run? And is that really going to solve their problems? Well, in Ruth, we have Elimelech and Naomi running. There was a famine, and so they ran to another land. They didn't stay in God's place and work with them. They didn't they decided, we're going to go somewhere else. This is not my problem. And they ran. And you know what? When they got there was still some struggles that came through. Actually, when they ran, their troubles got worse. We see in Ruth 1, verse 7, then Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. So originally it was just famine. Now she has the death of her husband. That's a pretty big struggle in her life. And then there's a time of peace where Ruth and Naomi join, Ruth and Orpah join Naomi's family. And there's a time when there's marriage and happiness and there's some connection points. But it doesn't last very long. And just a very short time after that, we see that Mahlon and Chilion also died. And the women were left without the 2 sons and her husband. Well, wow, that is a lot of pain. That is a lot of hurt. She left her home, she lost her family. What are you gonna do when you're surrounded by pain and hurt and messiness? You know, we just talked about the natural responses to that is that you are going to, you're gonna run or hide or deflect. But our story has an unusual twist. In the middle of when everyone else would be super easy, I'm gonna run away, I'm gonna hide, I don't know what I'm gonna do. We see Ruth emerge as an uncommon example. When her scenario was full of struggles, she lost her husband, she lost her source of connection, and she was faced with this famine kind of experience. And you know what? Her response was unusual. Her mother-in-law decided that she was gonna go back home. I don't know if you ever have struggles and times when you're like, man, this is hard, I wanna go home. It's a natural place to go back to, a reset, if you will. And she wanted to go home. And as she is heading back home, we have Ruth and Orpah starting that journey with her. And part of the way through, you can tell Naomi has just given up. She's like, I'm done. Well, I'm done with all of this. She's like, I'm going home, but there's no reason for me to drag you all into this. Go back to your families. Let me just be by myself and be done. Because it's rough. And I'm so miserable, I don't even want company. But instead of taking the easy way out, instead of facing this struggles and time of pain and saying, okay, well, let me go look out for number 1, Ruth comes in and does something selfless. She says, instead, I am here to serve you. I am going to come and I am going to make a difference in your life. And she's like, here is my promise. Here is my commitment. And in Ruth 1:16, we see that. It says, but Ruth replied, do not urge me to leave you or turn back from you. For where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord deal with me ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. She says, I'm all in. She's like, this is a crazy situation, and I am not sure what my future holds. But in the middle of all this trouble, I want to look out for you. I'm going to tie my destiny to your destiny, and I am going to serve you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there for you. Naomi kind of like isn't sure she's really thought this all through. And she comes back with you're going to gain nothing by helping me. She's like, even if I had a kid tonight, he's not going to grow up and be old enough for you to marry. You realize this is a foolish plan. Like Naomi's like, this is a bad plan. This is not going to work. You know that, right? And she comes back and says, I'm in. I'm all the way in. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm going to be involved in your life because that's what I'm going to do in the face of trouble. Kind of different experiences because Naomi, she ran away. She actually keeps running away, this time to home. But Ruth handled it much differently. Imagine with me if cats and dogs both could talk. I mean, if you know, there's people that are cat people and there are people that are dog people, and they have very different personalities. But let's imagine that there's two pets in the same household, and you were to hear their thoughts. If you were to hear a cat's diary, perhaps it would read a little like this. Day 983 of my captivity. My captors continue to taunt me with bizarre little dangling objects. They dine lavishly on fresh meat, while the other inmates and I are fed some sort of dry nuggets. Although I have told them that I made it perfectly clear that these rations are unacceptable. Nevertheless, I must eat them to keep up my strength. The only thing that keeps me going is my dream of escape, and I disguise my attempts by sneaking through their legs. I once again vomited on the carpet to show my displeasure, and today I decapitated a mouse and dropped it into their feet so that I could demonstrate my superiority. It goes on. Or a dog's diary. 8 a.m., dog food, my favorite thing. 9:30, a car ride, my favorite thing. 9:45, a walk in the park, my favorite thing. 10:30, got rubbed and patted my belly, my favorite thing. They both live in the same household. One of them sees it as captivity. The other one sees it as a palace. I love it. I'm so glad. I'm so grateful I'm involved in this family. You know, there's a lot that has to do with perspective. How are you going to handle the situation you've been given? For Ruth, she said, it's raining in my life. There is trouble and unfortunateness, and this is messy. And she says, and I'm going to cover you in the middle of this rain. I'm not going to take care of me. I'm going to make sure that you are covered and that you are protected because you are important. So Naomi, as she comes back to the land, she comes in with a real hardship. She comes to the well and people meet her and greet her and said, oh, Naomi. She's like, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Lord has dealt with me very bitterly. Can you hear it? Is she kind of dogging or catting this experience? She says, this was bad, and I am not happy, and this is rough. Can you imagine traveling hundreds of miles with somebody, and they're like, I have nothing. What about me? I've been standing right beside you. I'm walking this whole way. Like, nope, I've got nothing. This is the end. So sad. Nothing to do. But Ruth doesn't let Naomi's sorrow or bitterness stop her. She says, there's a need. We came back to this place, and the most obvious thing is we do not have food. Okay, what are we going to do about that? She starts and she says, I'm going to glean. She says, there's a physical need, and I'm going to serve you by gleaning. But it's amazing because when she goes to glean, she also is providing for herself. You know, it's amazing how God does that. When we serve others, we often gain blessings in that process. As we are serving, we see God working in our lives and changing our hearts. You know, there's a reason that the Bible says to pray for your enemies, because it is very hard to dislike someone and pray for them at the same time. When you are serving and you say, I'm going to serve and I'm going to make a difference in this person's life, I want to be there for them, I want to support them. It is very hard to say, and also, we're mad at you. You know, this uncommon service really spoke volumes, and people around took notice. They're like, who is this, and what is she doing? And she came all this way, and that's kind of weird, and why is she helping? And, you know, Naomi's not doing this, but she's serving Naomi. And as she's out gleaning, we see that Boaz takes notice of her, that she is out and she's working hard and she's doing all these things, and he sees that there's something different about her. And he comes and wants to have a conversation. What is it? Why are you here? Why did you do this? Because it's weird. You know, the natural thing is to take care of number one, to take care of yourself. And in times of struggle, it's easy to whine and complain and say, I'm done, I'm Mara, I'm bitter, this is me, woe to me. And Ruth is out there working. And Boaz says, so I've heard about you. In Ruth 2, verse 11, Boaz replies, I've been told about what you have done and how you have served your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and your mother and your homeland and came to live with a people that you did not know. He is impressed by her service. I mean, I think she was probably very beautiful as well, but really, he doesn't say, I noticed you're very pretty. He comes up and says, I notice what you've been doing. He says, I notice your heart. I notice that you've been working. I notice that when everything else is going crazy, you did some unusual, extraordinary things, and you took steps for service. He says, that is very noteworthy. That is very beautiful. I see something gorgeous in that process. And of course, we have Boaz saying, I want to gift you. I want to help you in this process as you're serving. Let me join you. I'm going to give you extra bonuses. I'm going to take some grain back with you. And Ruth comes home with not just what she gleaned, but extra. And we see her coming with armfuls of food. As she comes back from this experience, she's got all of this bounty, an overflowing measure, because she went to serve. You know, I don't think that changed Naomi right away. When they came in and she brings food, you can tell that she perks up. But sometimes it takes a while for service to affect the people around you. But she went back the next day, and she went back the next day, and she went back gleaning day after day after day. You know, we are called to serve God. And serving God is our calling as Christians. But serving God means that we serve his people, because that is who we have as our representations around us. If we want to do a service for God, that means we serve the people around us. And we hear that in Matthew. Whenever, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of me, my brothers and sisters, you have done for me. If we're looking to say, I want to make a difference, I want to honor God in my life, we do that through service. We do that through the service of the people around us. Even if there's some bitterness, even if we're in trials, even if we're in hardships, God calls us to serve. You know, service changes our perspective. When we are just focused on ourselves, everything looks like a W. It's why. Why is this happening to me? What is the problem? Why? But when we see things from God's point of view, we see him as a maker. We see him as the one that is in control. And it changes our perspective when we say, you know what? I'm going to serve. And that same situation turns around as an opportunity to say, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to give of myself. You know, throughout Ruth's experience, as she keeps coming home and keeps bringing back these gifts from her hard work, something happens in Naomi's heart. And she wants to give back to Ruth. And we hear this kind of late night conversation between the two of them as she says, you know, there's this boy. She says, I want you to be taken care of. You've been taking care of me. Now let me take care of you. I want to take care of you. I want you to have a place. I want you to have someone that's watching out for you. And I've seen, you know, you and Bo is this thing. Let me tell you what the next steps are. Kind of an interfering mother-in-law kind of moment where she's like, let me just tell you, lay it out for you. But it's beautiful because she does it from a heart that is saying, I have been served. Let me serve you. I care about your happiness. I care about what's going to be your future. I want to take care of your next steps. And so Naomi sends Ruth all gussied up to Boaz. And we have that late night meeting where he's on the threshing floor after having this big, beautiful harvest. And in that process, when he wakes up, he asks her, so who are you? He asks. And Ruth's response is, I am your servant, Ruth. She said, spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are my guardian redeemer of our family. When she introduces herself, she doesn't say, I'm the hard worker, Ruth. She says, I'm your servant. I'm here to serve. That is how she identifies herself. And she's like, if you would be willing to serve as my protector, I would really appreciate that. But I am here to serve you. And you see how God used this chain of events. That it wasn't just one thing, that how this built on itself, that we have Ruth serving Naomi. And then Naomi serves Ruth. And then Ruth says, I will serve you Boaz. And then Boaz, we know the story. Boaz serves Ruth. And then Ruth, then there's a baby. And then that helps Naomi. And there's this whole big trickle effect of how it passes on. There's momentum. When you want to make a big difference, you want to affect things around you, service. Service, serving the people around you. It doesn't stop with that first act of service. It makes a difference in their life, and their life makes a difference in the next person's life. And before you know it, all of the world is affected by the service that is happening. And so we see Boaz saying, hey, all right, I want to fight for my Ruth. And we hear him going to the gates and talking about the guardian redeemer and saying, okay, there's somebody that's closer. Let's see what his plans are. And you know what? It is just so predictable because the other guy, he acts he acts just like people usually act. He says, oh, wait, you want me to do something to help you? That's going to cost me. I'm not feeling it. You hear in Ruth 4, verse 6, and at that time, the guardian redeemer, the other one that was closer to, more responsible for her, says, then I cannot redeem it because it might endanger my own estate. You redeem it. I can't do it. Did you hear? They said, this sounds like a lot of work. It might hurt me. It's going to hurt. It's going to cost me something. I'm not going to do it. That is the usual response. When somebody is put into an unfortunate situation, when there is trouble or trial or differences, people are like, not me. Don't. I'm done. I have to protect myself. But Boaz doesn't. Instead, he takes Ruth into his household. And he marries her and says, I'm going to raise up a son that's not going to be given credit to me. I'm going to raise up a son that is going to give credit to somebody else. They're going to get their name and that land and that inheritance. That is a very unselfish thing to do. That is service. It's actually type of Christ that says, I'm going to give of myself. And we see out of that a beautiful baby. A baby that is born that actually is in line to be the father and the father and the father, King David, who is the great grandfather of Jesus. And you see through these hearts of service, these people who've dedicated themselves to God, he brings about a most beautiful end, an act of service. Luke 6:38 says, give and it will be given back to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you have been given, it will be measured to you. God says, I want to do beautiful things in your life, and that starts by you sharing. In 2016, there was a homeless man named Billy Ray Harris. It was a usual day for him, Wednesday, I believe, and he was sitting on the side collecting coins. Somebody came out of a busy shopping thing and threw a handful of coins into his cup. Later that afternoon, he started counting through what he'd received. And along with change, there was a very large ring with a diamond in it. And he knew immediately this was worth a lot. How did that ring get there? What was going on with that ring? No, somebody gave it to him. It's his property. It got put in his cup. What are you going to do? Now you see from the other side, the woman who'd walked out of a busy apartment a busy shopping thing, her fingers had gotten swollen that day, and she'd taken her ring off and put it in her purse. And then she saw this man that needed help, and she grabbed change and threw it in his cup, along with her engagement ring. And the ring was worth $4,000. But more than that, it also was a symbol of her love to her husband and her husband-to-be, and she was just mortified. And she thought through, she's like, well, maybe if I can find that guy, he can tell me to what pawn shop he sent. He gave my ring and I can track it back down. Because, this is, it just broke her heart. She's like, he's probably gone. I'll never see him again. And there's just this struggle. As Sarah Darling is saying, I'm not sure. I can't believe, let me tell you, a horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day where she had lost her wedding ring, her engagement ring. She's like, well, on the off chance that maybe the man is still around or somebody knows where he could be, she returns to the place where she had been yesterday. And there she finds Billy Ray. And before she even says anything, he says, oh, I was waiting for you. And he comes towards her, and out of his coat, he pulls the ring and gives it back to her. You know how much that ring could have changed his life? You know what he could have done with that ring? What he could have bought? More than just a house for the night, a room for rent for a month, for 6 months. You know what he could have done with that? He also, as they talked more, he always moved places, but he decided to stay in that place so that maybe she could find him. The story blew her away. She's like, nobody does that. Nobody does that. And really, she said, she started telling her friends, and there's a news story afterwards because it was like, man, this is so weird. Nobody does that. And they started talking more, and they found out that Billy Ray had grown up with a reverend for a grandfather. And when asked, why did you do that? He said, because it's what Jesus would have done. And there is this incredible, even in his lowest point, he's like, I've done some bad things, but I know that this was wrong, and I had to do this. Now, it is incredible. As people started hearing the story, Sarah set up a GoFundMe page. It says, I want to pay forward what he has done for me. Actually, within 2 months, $190,000 got donated to Billy. And his life completely turned around. He bought a house, he bought a car, and 3 offers in the community all wanted to employ him. And he got his choice of employment. Also, all the news attention helped him reconnect with some family who he'd lost touch with several years before. Isn't it amazing how God used that act of service, that act that really was out of character and didn't make sense and really he had no reason to do, to bless him? You know, whenever we do that kind of service, it's not because of us. It's because God is living inside of us, because on our own, we don't choose to do that kind of thing. We don't choose to say, in the middle of this trouble, I'm going to serve. But we see that when God is our King and our Lord, that we want to act differently because we are his servants. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have bad days, because all of us are going to have bad days. And maybe that's a phone breaking, or maybe that's all the things in your life seem like they're all coming together. But in every situation, we have a choice to say, how are we going to respond? In the middle of the storm, there's 2 different kinds of responses. You'll see here what looks like a monster. It's actually an anglerfish, and that's a deep sea fish that uses light. And in the darkness, even fish are attracted to light, and they come, and that fish eats them. The fish there's something light and there's something beautiful, and the fish uses that as a means to catch its prey. But in that same darkness, in ships that are surrounded by dark storms, they are also attracted to the light. And they use that light as a beacon and a source. There's the other kind of light, a lighthouse. that points people the right direction and helps people know where it's safe to go. You have a choice. What kind of light do you want to show from you? We are celebrating Pathfinders today. And in the Pathfinder pledge, part of it is, by the grace of God, I will be a servant of God. That's part of the motto. That's part of what we commit to, is saying that I'm going to be a servant of God and a friend to man. And that is a beautiful ideal that we can't do without God living in our hearts. But with God living inside of us, it is something that is our response, that we can choose to respond that way in times of trouble. So as we close today, I ask you, will you choose service in the face of trouble? Are you going to choose to let God work through you and give you uncommon response to the struggles around you?